welcome in Lokayat discussions. Today we have a special guest from Nairobi, Kenya, our friend Daniel Kobei.
Yes.
He heads an organization called Ogiek Peoples Development Project. Is that OD?
Yes, program, yes.
Uh,
OPDP.
OPDP. It's working with the indigenous communities, and thank you very much being here. So, Daniel, first thing, how is Kenya doing with the COVID? How are things there in your country?
Well, COVID is a scare to everybody, including the Kenyan people. The Kenyan government has responded in a high gear because they have decided that this COVID is a pandemic, and the government has already set some policies and regulations on how to tackle the COVID-19. This includes following the WHO guidelines on how to deal with this COVID. With a population of almost 47 million, we already have over 3,500 people who have been tested positive in Kenya. And already over 100 people have died of
100
COVID.
people have died.
100 people, more than 100 people, because I don't know the statistics of today.
Fine.
Yeah, and in Kenya, interestingly, it has been more or less confined in Nairobi city and Mombasa city. That is where the higher number of COVID-19 positive cases are. In Kenya, we have 47 counties, and already more than half of the counties have had cases, but not as Nairobi and Mombasa. And the major thing is that the schools have been closed down in the country since March. All schools have been closed down, and universities, colleges, all of them. Also, churches and places of worship have been closed down. Right now, they are trying to find ways on how to deal with the case by maybe giving a few people to attend, like funerals. They allow like 15 people, close members, to be there. Though, of course, people can go beyond that, but that is the regulations. This issue of washing of hands and using a mask, it is all over. But if you go to the villages, it is not like so. I was in the village last week, and people are still greeting one another. It's still, they only put some little water in a jerry can for washing hands. It's like they are doing it for the government, not for them. Even the mask, they are using it to fear because of police. They are not doing it because it's a requirement. So as I was driving, and we get roadblocks, and the police were measuring temperatures. I went through 3 or 4 counties, and I was stopped, and I was with my mom and my wife, and and my son also. They were measuring temperature, and it was okay all through. But what I can say is that it is being taken in a very serious way. Nairobi and Mombasa, they still have more or less like some level of curfew, where they are not allowed to leave Nairobi. So people cannot go or come out of Nairobi and Mombasa. But the other counties, people can travel, but not Nairobi, because that's where there are cases. And also they have changed, they used to be curfew from 7 to 5 a.m. Now it is 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. So it's more or less like a night duty. The only other thing they did was to close down all the bars and places where people are drinking beers and something like that, been closed down. No, Kenya people drink like hell. So, side places were closed down. And then also worship, places of worship, as I told you, mosque, for the first time, mosques are being closed down, churches are being closed down, something which has never happened since I was born myself. So I've never
Yes.
seen churches or mosques being closed down. Even during curfew, people still could go to church or could go to place of worship in the mosque, in the churches and such like. And one other thing, maybe before we can proceed on, is to say that it's like people are prepared. Others are also trying to come up with herbal medicine to treat the disease. The others who have already come up with a way of doing it, the use of lemon and whatever
Honey.
is becoming very prominent, and the use of tangawizi, I don't know how you call it.
Ginger?
Tangawizi is
Ginger?
ginger, yes. Yeah, we
Oh,
call them tangawizi, ginger.
okay.
They're mixing with hot water.
Yes, that's
So
the.
it is common. And the other people are coming, artists are coming up with music of stopping corona or
Okay.
COVID-19. It is common. So in a nutshell, that's what I can say about COVID in Kenya. Yeah.
Good. How is the situation like? Is there a migration from cities to back to villages, like we've seen in India and South Asia? When this lockdown happened, everything closed. So a large number of the urban slum dwellers and homeless people who were working in the unorganized sector, they were left without any job and just started walking back. Even there was no transportation. So has your country seen that kind of a
Of course,
migration?
yes, it is. And the government have been trying to stop people that don't take corona to the village people because they are safer. So they have been trying to deny members who are in cities or towns, telling them not to go to the villages. You know, in Kenya, we have two homes.
Yes.
One, like me now, I have a home in town and a home in the village.
Okay.
So it's a system in Kenya. So many people, like last week, I was in my village for 2-3 days. So people are advised not to take the corona to the people in the village, but they still go. Even the people in Nairobi, despite they have been given those regulations not to move in and out of Nairobi, they still use, they call, in Kenya, we call them panya routes. These are routes by the rats, you know, they
Okay.
find shortcuts to go to the villages. So this has been happening. So it's not only India or in South Asia, it is also common here in Africa where people, they think they are more safer in the village than in the cities.
So what's happening actually now in mostly the developing countries like yours and ours and Asia and elsewhere, as government have imposed strict regulations, emergency powers. So a large number of government are turning very authoritarian. Have you seen in your country such kind of authoritarianism with power are too much and no power to respond, protest? Police have got enormous powers. They can arrest you even for a Facebook
It
post or
is more
whatever.
serious here. It's more serious. Police brutality has been a very serious issue. There have been very serious cases, especially when these things started. The police were beating people mercilessly,
Yes.
and until the government, the president had to intervene
Okay.
that we should not use excessive force, because the police were using excessive force for anything. Even in some towns, people have been beaten because of not wearing the mask
Yes.
or not using it properly.
Yeah, the
Some
distance
they
and
hang
also.
them in their necks, and you know, all forms, and you know, there comes a lot of designs
Yes.
of the mask
Yes.
from all kinds of colors, and it is very interesting.
Yeah.
So the way they've been using is, they have even arrested some people and be taken to court. One time, a deputy governor in Mombasa was arrested because he knew he had just traveled to the country, and he went ahead mixing with people
Okay.
without accepting the 14 days quarantine or
Okay.
quarantine. By not accepting to go into quarantine, they were he was arrested afterwards. After he became well, when he
Okay.
recovered, he had to go to court
Okay.
because of misbehaving. This has also helped people who have traveled or outside the country, those, because now no more traveling.
Yes.
They were told to accept to go to self quarantine. And now the government were giving specific places for quarantine. And some people even were having a problem because they were to pay themselves. You don't go to quarantine and you pay for the 14 days,
Oh.
either in a hotel, and it was becoming very merciless until later on it was reviewed, and now the the government is paying for amount of money or the cost for quarantine.
And what about like the testing? Like is the testing being done by the government or is by the private hospitals or private companies?
Purely it is government.
Okay.
It's purely government. They are now trying to extend to private hospital, those major private hospital, not the small ones. Where like now we have the Aga Khan Hospital in Kenya, Kenyatta Hospital, this big hospital, they do that. But it is done by a research center called KEMRI, Kenya, KEMRI, for doing research on diseases in Kenya. So they are the one doing it. And so it is purely government. But they have also put specific places. Like now they are testing in Kenya, a very small number, like 3,000
Yeah, it's very small
uh,
number.
per day.
Yeah.
That is in 24 hours.
Oh.
So, yeah. But anyways, that's not a bad figure considering we are only 47 million.
Yes.
So 3,000 per day, which I know is different from India,
No.
where we
Yeah.
are talking of almost 1 billion people.
Yes. Yes.
And the good part in India, your medical setup also is good. And it is maybe by state, Madhya Pradesh,
Yeah.
and all those areas. I'm sure they have already have their own.
Yeah, India is also have a lot of problems growing because some states have done well, some have not done well. Then
Mm-hmm.
also the number of people is also like, as you said, we are 1 billion, so obviously the crisis will be much bigger.
Yeah, certainly yes. Yeah.
As a land right defender, I am coming to this issue like. How do you see COVID impacting the food situation in your country? Is it like what will be the impact on the indigenous people or rural poor of this lockdown or this the strategies that the governments are developing now?
Um, I can say the one of the greatest impact is in some places, especially on the dry areas where indigenous peoples are, like among the Maasai people and the rest. There's some challenge because they were depending on a lot of food from agricultural areas. So the movement of food to some areas has been a challenge, especially now some people are no longer getting wages, the employment problems, and people are being stopped in some places. So it impacts them. Until now, we have well-wishers like Red Cross helping in some areas, and some well-wishers organization trying to assist in some areas. But in reality, they've been affected by this. We only in Kenya this time, it became maybe a blessing in disguise because there has been an average. So people were able to get foodstuffs without much challenge. In case it was a very dry spell, it was going to be very, very serious. But in terms of land sector, our lands ministry was closed down. There's been no land issues going on in Kenya for all this time. But the challenge has been for indigenous people like Ogiek community, where I come from, is that despite of all this, government officers have been threatening to evict some of our people. In Mao complex, where I come from, without due consideration of COVID-19. And I've even been able to talk to government officers to tell them how can they evict people when even there is a big problem in the country. Why can they wait? Even despite that, the Ogiek community won a case on the 26 May 2017, where we were supposed to have our case implemented. And so the challenge among indigenous peoples is very tricky. And the worst of all, also, we had floods going on, and floods kill more people than corona. We had over 200 and almost 300 people dying out of floods, which is even more than the 100 who have died of corona. So sometimes we might be putting a lot of energy on corona, and other calamities are happening, like floods, and it has been a big problem in some parts of the country.
Yeah, that's as we're saying, many friends are saying for India, South Asia, that there will be, if this lockdown continue, more people will die of hunger than corona actually.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why they are trying now to relax a bit. They have now allowed some businesses to continue. Like in restaurants, you must open and get the people tested before they can work in restaurants. And you'll have the 2 meter or the 1.5 meter distance. So you have to readjust your restaurant to accommodate few people. So social distancing, they are trying really to ensure. And so many businesses, they have also opened up because they used to have people going home very early from work. Now people can work up to 5. Previously, it used not to. So now it's like they have opened up. Like where I am now, you can hear some sounds. People are busy doing lots of work. And because my office is next to, and even my office, we are back because we are not many. So we decided that even as we had left the office for some time working at home, but we realized the performance was not as such. I realized this Zoom or home is not really a replacement.
It can't be.
Going to offices. It can never be a replacement.
It can't be.
So some people are thinking maybe there'll be less traveling or what, but one-to-one will still be very, very important.
Oh, that's very, very important. That's definitely, particularly those who work with the communities. Zoom can't replace the meeting directly with people, sitting with them, having tea and coffee and food with them at the villages.
So sometimes we also go to the village to bury our dead.
Obviously. So this question which you raised, that eviction continues, and it is happening actually at many places globally, both eviction and the brutalities of the state happening in most of the places. And what we are saying, this is an extraordinary crisis world over. So the government should have been more careful in cooperating and people, both each other. So do you think that there should be a complete moratorium, a stoppage on the any kind of evictions or any kind of displacement of the people, particularly the indigenous people?
Exactly, that is what we have been calling the government to do. We have been asking, we need a complete moratorium to ensure that let's wait until we are sure everything is in order. Because if you evict an indigenous community, it means they will have to crowd somewhere.
Yeah.
Then there will be an impact of COVID again.
Yes.
They will die. So what have you achieved by killing people? So we have been calling upon the Kenyan government or all the government in Africa and all over to have a complete moratorium whereby land issues, the status quo should remain until and after COVID, when maybe there will be vaccinations or something positive is coming forward. Because it is also stress. People are dying of stress,
Yes.
fear of unknown.
Absolutely.
And we don't want this to be supported by this kind of eviction and threats. Because
Yes.
I remember some of our people were told they should not plant the more subsistent foods because this is a government forest. Then they say, but we won a case. Why do you want again to say we cannot farm or do something for the benefit of our people?
Yeah, the major question I always feel is what is the like land situation in Kenya? Like how many the number of the landless people in your country, and is there any government program strategy to overcome that, or they are just not interested? How is it?
That's a very good question, Vidya. The only issue is that there are no proper statistics really on land issues in Kenya. One thing they always say, not everybody will have to have land. They always give they give reasons that the Indians in Kenya don't need land.
Okay.
After all, they are very rich, so
yeah, fine.
Why should they don't need land? But Kenyans are fighting over land. There are always fights. Like 2-3 weeks ago, there were clashes because of land. In fact, one of the Ogiek was shot and hospitalized, other people because of land issues. So there's been frequent clashes going on in the country because of land. And the government and the issue of landless people, they are always there. And they keep increasing because children are being born to the landless. So if you are born to the landless, you become landless. And so that's why we have slums like Kibera, one of the biggest slums in Africa. And the land is a problem. However, most land in Kenya are supposed to be owned by indigenous peoples.
Okay.
The bigger tracts of land, especially the pastoralists, the Maasai, the Borana, the Samburus, they have big tract of land because it is dry. Some are semi-arid or dry. And one advantage is that some of them now are having oil, like in northern Kenya. So people are getting, oh, this land we thought it was useless. Now there's oil. And then there's also wind power. They have started the renewable energy issues are coming up. In Kenya, there is what we call community land, which people, we are trying to see how we can own land as a community, not necessarily as an individual or private.
Yes. Okay.
So we are encouraging the communities, especially indigenous people, to own land communally.
Yeah.
But it's not it's not something which is being welcomed in some quarters. Because they feel that they will not get a chance to extend, to grab, to take part of their indigenous people land for other investments or to lease it for investment and such like that. Because in some IP's land, there are tourism also going on. Like in Kenya, where we have Masai Mara, one of the big game reserve, and we have the so-called the seventh wonder of the world, where there is a wild beast crossing every, I think, July or something. And there is a lot of the people who are within that area are Maasai people, the indigenous peoples. And there is a lot, because of this COVID, they are not getting money now because there are no tourists, there are no people moving. So there are a lot of challenges all over. So land in Kenya is something very emotive, always create trouble, always some of us, last year, And part of this year, I underwent a lot of threats because of the fights I'm undergoing because of Mao. Some politicians were threatening me because they feel I'm becoming an impediment to them getting land in Mao and selling, because there is what we call, there is a caveat which has been put on some of the land which they cannot sell. And when they found out, they realized my organization was part of the team which went to court asking that there should be no transactions going on in Mao complex. So in the process, some of them started saying, it is easy, just eliminate and then life become easy. It's the man behind all this. And the organization should be closed down so that things will move smoothly. Because this is a guy who is calling all the shots all over the world, talking to these organizations, these litigators or other lawyers all over, taking our case to the court in Kenya and African court. So all these things have been happening.
So are there government programs, particular programs about, land distribution, land redistribution or protection of land, particularly with indigenous people? Are there particular laws?
Yeah, there is a land policy in Kenya. And there is even a commission formed called National Land Commission, NLC, who are supposed to oversee land issues in Kenya. Because the only thing which makes Kenyans to fight among themselves is nothing but land.
Yes.
Or natural resources.
Yeah.
People have never fought over anything, even though they use political period to fight sometime.
Yeah.
There's been always caused by majorly land and tribalism. In Kenya, there's one called tribalism, which is even worse than the so-called racial discrimination, the one we are seeing in the US.
Yes.
Sometimes people even don't know that there are also serious problems in Africa.
Yeah,
it's not only we are discrimination because of race. There is other discrimination. We discriminate even among ourselves, and people fight to belong to this tribe and all that. So Kenya has been fighting on tribalism because of land and such like.
See, this is a very important question which I was coming now. Who are the communities? Definitely, there may be a larger number of people or communities who are landless, and there may be a large number of people who may be having acquired more than what they deserve. So who are the powerful elite, the land elite in Kenya, and who are the absolute landless?
The politicians in Kenya, when you become a politician, is like a passport to own big tracts of land. And the people who are owning big tracts of land are majorly the rich people. And they own the fertile places, the most arable places, where they can plant tea, coffee. They can also plant wheat, rice, those major cash crops in Kenya. And they're the one owning. And then they own also part of the most expensive part of the cities. They have plots or land which they can subdivide into plots for sale. And they sell in millions and millions. So the rich people keep on becoming rich every day. The poor get poorer every time. So to break this gap is a big problem and is a big challenge for the country, because those who were born from families who had land are the one continuing to own and expand their land in Kenya. So it is a very big problem. People have tried, but it's not easy to deal with that case. So the landless are people who have been landless over time, and they continue becoming landless. maybe God's give you some chance of making money. Then you can buy yourself some place to build a home or something. But these other guys, somebody has 10,000 acres. Somebody has over 200,000 acres.
Oh.
That people who have, some own like a whole, they were approximating even, some people have owned like a whole county, you know. If they, because they have land here, they have land in this place, in the other place, they have land for planting tea in Rift Valley and coffee. There is land for planting rice in another area. There is land for doing wheat in another area, or even having a private game reserve and something like that.
So there is no law which prohibit people from having land above certain amount, like we have India. We have a ceiling law. The ceiling law describes that a person cannot have more than, say, 12 acre of land, which is irrigated, or 18 acre of land. Because beyond that, the government acquired the land and then it has to be distributed among the people. So is there, there is no
We
prohibition?
cannot agree in Kenya that, no. In Kenya, they have tried that. And anybody who decides to talk about land as a politician, you will never win any votes in this country. If you start saying, I'm going to change land laws or redistribute land, the rich people might even eliminate you because they are the one owning the land. So if you tell them we want to have the 10 acres and he's having 200,000 acres, I remember there was another very senior former provisional commissioner in Kenya, and he had a lot of big land. He had 12,000 acres.
Oh, 12,000.
Yes. People one day decided to invade into their land, and they started subdividing themselves. The man has the title, but the land is being occupied by these poor Kenyans who are there. He has gone to court, he won the case, but evicting people is a problem.
Yes.
Because you are evicting thousands of people.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of people. Because they went with 2 acres.
Yeah.
The one has 5 acres, another one, the highest having this number of acres. In the process, they have become very difficult for him to but he passed on to on. I think his children are still following. So the only thing is that we have been fearing in future there might be some kind of revolution, which unforeseen, and for the people who own big tracts of land. So which is a big problem.
So the revolution will happen because the political system fails, and political system fails because it gets corrupted. Who is responsible? What is colonialism responsible for corruption of our political system?
I say yes, because they are the one who are owning big tracts of land. There was Lord so-and-so, Sir Eliud, Sir so-and-so owning the White Islands. One man was owning over the whole county. So you could find, like in where I am, it was being owned by less than 10 white people. Okay. And when they were leaving, they sold part of that land to the politician who took over independent.
Okay.
So they wanted also to stay like the white people. So the affluent community are having that feeling that I should stay like Mzungu. Mzungu in Kenya means a white man.
Okay.
I should stay like a Mzungu, like a rich, big man, like a white person from Britain who is owning a whole plantation, or maybe owning a plantation of tea, a plantation of wheat, and all that. So they were very, very, very rich. So the challenge we have is it was inherited.
Okay.
The post-independent government, instead of redistributing land, they redistributed to the political class.
Okay, yes.
And then in the process, the other remaining, they were put into some reserves They belong into this community on community kind of a setup.
So when you say, like you said, that in Kenya you have tribalism, so definitely one leader will have 10 tribes or 4 tribes all together. Might be like in India we have politicians, they fix up the caste, and say this many people, this caste, that combination they make for political winning things. So that is where I'm saying, like, are there certain tribes or certain communities which are more powerful in terms of resources, in terms of land, or some have been left out completely? Is that this gap between communities?
Excellent.
Because I'm not seeing that's a class thing. I'm saying the identity issue, not merely class issue, but your identity, your cultural identity, whether your tribe identity or your indigenous people identity. How are these identity issues important in getting you a ticket to party, or you remaining landless? How much your identity matter in your country?
In fact, in Kenya, it may not be having casteism like it is in India.
Yeah, that definitely.
But the way things are is that if you belong to a given community, you will be better if you belong to a given community in Kenya than belong to another community.
Yes.
Like for instance, if you are from the tribe where our president comes from,
okay,
they are big in number. They are also more educated. They are also economically more empowered. And it is because the first president of Kenya also came from that community.
What is the community?
It's called Kikuyu community in Kenya, because they have had 3 presidents.
Okay. Oh.
Out of the 4 presidents we have had since independence.
Okay, 3 from that community.
Yeah, only 1 has not been from that community.
Oh.
The community also where the former president, the second president of Kenya came from, also have a lot of big tracts of land, and they have a big say in the political setup of Kenya. So they have like another advantage or a comparative advantage than the rest because they come from that community.
Yes.
They have a very strong political setup. They have counties where they have governors, senators, members of parliament, and all that. So, but some small communities like where I come from, the Ogiek, they are disadvantaged because 1, we were not privileged to be given our community land like the other communities. So what we are fighting for is what Kenya got 55 years ago.
Yes.
Now Ogiek are trying to get things done after 55 years. Other minorities like the same way the Yaku are facing. In Kenya, there is a principle called the tyranny of numbers.
Yes, that everywhere is that.
Yeah, the more you are, the more say you have.
Yes.
So if your community is big in number, you have a say in the political whatever. And also you have a say in getting government contracts, in doing many other things. So the other communities, like the pastoralists and the rest, they might have, but because of the way of life, they have also a lot of, you find their land is always being hived away by the government to be given.
National highways, energy sector.
Yeah. They hive them, this big land, hive them like that. So what I'm trying to say is that it plays a big role. The numbers, the economical power. There are those who have also economical power more than the rest.
So these differences, the contradictions are used by the power elite between the communities and, build up their community base, more majoritarianism actually.
Exactly.
That's
and one other thing, Vidya, is that some of them, when they are, because of corruption, which is a factor here, corruption is so strong in our country. If you are from a bigger community, when you are arrested because of corruption, the community will rise up and say, oh, they are arresting one of our own. Then the communities protect the corrupt fellows.
Oh.
Yeah.
So basically, most of the time, our thinking doesn't go basically on the issue of ideological thing, but on the identity thing. You belong to my community, so I will protect you, whatever you are. You are wrong.
Yeah, whether you are a big thief. Yes.
Yeah. So that is very dangerous. That happens actually because political parties and politicians in all the developing countries mostly are using this trick. This is a trick.
Yeah, and people are not getting educated even with time. They are not getting that even if I have nothing to give to the community, so long as I belong to that community, they will protect me.
Yes.
Even if for me, I will not, even if I'm the best in this, nobody will give me a chance because I'm from a minority indigenous community.
Yes, that is the very important part is where we feel that every minority, because of their way of life and living is different than us, we think they are obstacle and we want to leave them out. So that's very sad situation in most of the places. What we are saying, that is kind of I call that a dissenting people, and dissenting people are not liked in our democracies.
Exactly.
So
there is no democracy anyway.
yeah,
You might be using the wrong term. You cannot call democracy when people are being stepped on. They cannot even say, please, you have stepped on my foot.
Yes.
No,
I agree with your point. I agree with your point. That is, this democracy is just, elections in 5 years, you go and vote, then you don't know whether your vote is correct or not, whether it is being counted or not counted. So democracy is not just elections, but even our way of life. And if that way of life is not there, then there is no point of calling it a democracy, because most of the political leaders who are democratically elected are becoming very authoritarian, using all instruments of the state, the army, the military, even the judiciary.
Yeah, exactly.
How independent are the institutions in your country, like judiciary, media, administration?
That's a very good one. There is a big problem because most recently our Chief Justice went publicly to speak to the president.
Oh.
He has been trying to get an appointment to see the president, and he has not gotten a chance. And he's the Chief Justice. He's the one who took him to take an oath that is going to defend the Constitution of Kenya. But the same guy cannot be even allowed to the State House. And they find that the power, division of power is a problem, especially now that our judiciary sometimes has challenges. The budgets are very small. So if the budgets are small, meaning you are disempowered, technically.
Of course.
So there were thousands and thousands of pending cases.
Yes.
And the reason why the Chief Justice went is that he wanted some almost over 30 or so judges. They wanted some judges to be admitted. So he needed only the president to take them for an oath of office, which alias not just, the list is there, it's just waiting just 5 minutes to take an oath. But it is a procedure. If they don't take an oath, they cannot be allowed to be judges. Yeah.
That is basically.
I don't know how it is in India.
No. These are the same processes. If the government is unhappy with the judiciary, they will delay. They will, keep the file pending, and they will say we are looking at it. So it, sometimes when we are looking at it, takes 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Sometimes it doesn't come. So
Exactly.
it's a very like all those the big powers actually who colonized our countries actually destroyed our system,
Completely.
and we have got their system, corrupted system here. They have corrupted our elite, and they have captured our institutions.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's very sad part actually, because when you can't have a land law in your country, an upper ceiling limit, how is a black land grabber or an African American African origin land grabber different than a white land grabber?
There's no different. There's
See,
no different.
when you say about the race question, and everybody there, this question is coming up, the race relation in America and all this thing, and big statues are being dismantled everywhere in England also. Uh, but when you go deep into this, the supply of the slaves
Mm-hmm.
happened from a country like Kenya and Ghana,
Mm-hmm.
and they were
Yeah, it was more common in West Africa than Eastern Africa.
okay.
The slave trade was very common, where people were taken to work on the plantations
Yes.
in South America, in America. Mostly in Kenya, those who were taken were very few. Maybe some of them were taken by the so-called, there was this guy called Vasco da Gama and the rest who are
Yeah.
trying to discover, you heard about it? He's
Columbus.
coming on his way to come to India.
Yeah.
And
Vasco da Gama.
yes, and those are the time when we had these, the ZZ guys were doing a bit of slave trade, taking people to go and work for them. But by that time, they were more, in Kenya, they were more of Asian
Okay.
origin than the ones in West Africa, who most of them are the one you find the black people in Brazil, the
Okay.
Argentina, and
Caribbeans.
America and the rest. Yeah. So, because the western side is nearer to America than
Yeah.
where we are.
Okay. So, was slavery existing in African areas before it went to Europe and America? Many
You
people
say
say
what?
that was slavery there in your countries, in African countries, before it went to America and Europe? Like your own kings and queens have slaves?
In Kenya, there were no such slave setup. They were only having workers
Okay.
who were specifically given to work for the kings. Not every community had kings.
Okay.
Some communities had only clan leaders, chiefs, but there were others who had kingdoms. Those are the ones who had maybe to marry many women or to have workers. But in some parts of West Africa, interestingly, there's still slavery in some countries.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This many
It's
people
still
say.
there.
Yeah.
They own in, I think it is Mauritania where.
Yeah, Mauritania. I heard Nigeria, I suppose, had something in certain part.
Yeah, there are some areas where kings, they are still slaves. And when you give birth to another slave.
Yes.
So the slave give birth to slaves, and they still stay in the same home, and they are misused in all kinds, sexually abused.
Yes.
They are misused, they are killed, and there is nobody to talk about it and such like. So it is still, it happens in some areas. I was surprised. I didn't know until when I was in the African Commission in West Africa, when I had people coming to court that they are being enslaved. I was like, what? I didn't believe it. And then when I was in New York for Permanent Forum, I met a group of women in some parts also I think it's one of the Caribbean countries also, that there are slaves, or there are so-called stateless people also.
Yes.
People who have no country, stateless communities, which are some of the things which, to me, it is a bit of slavery in one way or another.
Yes, yes. You know, I met a person, we had a conference in London 1 decade back on untouchabilities. And then there was a person from, I think, Nigeria and some other countries, 2, 3 countries. And they represented, they said there is an untouchability and slavery, both, in certain parts. Not everywhere, but certain parts. Certain communities practice. So that's a very sad part, because I thought that these are particularly in India.
No. You know, in India, it has been like culturally accepted.
Yes.
Which is the worst part. I used to be so astonished to find that this person is not supposed to own a home. Even if he goes to school, you still become a slave, like that you come from a caste setup. Sometimes they don't go to school because you are a caste, you don't go to school, you are illiterate. And you know the way India has developed, you could be surprised that there are people who are not, and they don't have toilets, they help themselves on the open field. And it used to make us feel this is terrible. When I was there in the early 90s, I used to watch with a lot of dismay to see people going to help themselves early in the morning with some containers. It is a terrible view in a country where there's tarmac, there's electricity, there's all these water system. People are suffering in a big way. I've been telling people, you can never say you have traveled the world if you have never been to India.
Yes. India is India is a country of diverse
everything is diverse. From religion,
yes,
from people, from the rich, the wealthiest people, I think they are in India.
The poorest.
The best brains are in India. The poorest, the best hospitals. I think everything is in India.
It's a very, it's a definitely. So, I want to ask you, like, are there investment coming in your country, the foreign investment, and if those are big, how are people taking that? Like, is there impacting the indigenous people or not, or how are the big? Because you already have big land holding, so if companies also come and take. So, what is there for the indigenous people?
There's a lot of land issues in Kenya. The investments which are coming is in a big way. One, we have one called Lapset. Lapset is a road being built from Lamu all the way to connect Ethiopia and South Sudan, and even up to Uganda and the rest. That project is affecting this, actually removing a lot of indigenous people. That particular big I don't know whether it's I think it is a World Bank or IMF funded, and it has really done a lot. China also has invaded Kenya in a big way. There are a lot of projects, road construction being done by Chinese, and it is also affecting indigenous people. The standard gauge railway, which came all the way from Mombasa to Nairobi, on the way it affected a lot of indigenous peoples. So there are a lot of projects. The one I told you about the oil in Lake Turkana is affecting the Turkana people who are indigenous people because they were removed out of their land. It looks like some people even discover that this land is having oil. So they told people, sell us this bare land. It is dry, it is not. Only people, the community discover later that there is a resource in this land. So they decided to take up through their county government, because the county government are from the community. So they help them to have some some benefit sharing with those projects.
Are there any resentment among the people protest there in Kenya against this land grabbing?
No, it's not really. Sometimes they do compensation, but very minimal. Some compensation are not worth it. So they tell people, oh, because we are doing this road or doing this big project, remove from here, we are paying you. And sometimes it can take so long for the payment to be done because you are asked a lot of questions. You have to present this to prove that the land is yours. And sometimes some indigenous communities do not have documentation to prove that whether the land is theirs or not.
So there is no protection for them then?
No protection, unless only what have been happening is
the only protection is paper.
Paper, and then they sometimes go to court, and then court delays forever, you know. So they spend a lot of money trying to deal with compensation to be paid, going to court. So a lot of money are spent with the lawyers in Kenya by the indigenous people for trying to have their self-determination in terms of ownership of their land or to do things their own way.
Yeah, I read in your that your program of Ogiek Peoples Development Program. One thing was you talk about the self-determination. Now the self-determination issue is very complicated, particularly for the government.
In fact, they don't like us mentioning that word.
Yes.
It's not accepted. They make it like it's a UN terminology.
As if you are seeking separation from your country.
Yeah, which is not true.
Yes.
They don't understand the basics of self-determination.
Yeah, it's about my forest, my right.
Yes.
My natural resources.
Yes, my right, my natural resources, my identity, my culture, my religion.
They think it in terms of, as if you are, seeking a separation from your country, and then this is...
No, that's not true.
So this question came, like you said that you have won some case in 2017. What was this case about?
It was about the issue of land, because they Ogiek want to own their land like any other Kenyan. But the government is thinking we are in their land, but I always tell people they are in my land. It is the government which came to my land. It's not me who went to government land. Because I was there before the government.
Yes.
The Ogiek community, my ancestors were there before the government. So the land basically is land, but now I'm going to court for them to agree that I own this land. So it was issue of restitution to have my land back. And then also, but the government is looking at it as a forest.
Yeah.
In terms of environmental issues, in terms of health issues, everybody wants good air, good health, but they say, oh, we want this, or the 10% forest cover, and such like. And then that is what took us to the court. We tried in Kenya for 12 years, it couldn't work. We went to the African Commission, 2009, stayed for 2 years again. The African Commission decided to forward it to the African Court, 2012. So it stayed again in 2012 to 2017. That is when it was ruled in our favor. It became a shock to the government because they never thought the community was going to win the case. So even they had sent very young lawyers.
Okay.
So when they started saying, oh, you mean Ogiek won the case? Where were you? All this. So it became a big issue. But the only worst part is that the implementation is not forthcoming. It has become now 3 years, nothing.
So are there no option for you to go back to the court and tell them that this is the situation, how to do it?
we are already in touch. I'm personally in touch with the commission, with the court, with the lawyers. We are writing them even to give us more the so-called provisional measures to protect us in the meantime from all kinds of harassment or intimidation. And the court also, they were still to rule on reparation.
Okay.
Specific reparation for this case.
I think it's very, very important. It's very, very important.
So that is what they are now about to do. We were supposed to have done it in the month of June, 5th of June, but now with this COVID, everything went differently.
How many people are affected? How many people are there, the community?
We are talking of over 30,000 people.
30,000 people, okay.
Yeah.
And what was the size of the land?
The land is so big, we told them we are not taking it for ourselves, but we want to protect it for the sake of Kenya and the community. Yes. It is not that we want to cut down the trees and what. We are talking of 400,000 hectares.
Okay.
Yeah, and we say we want to protect it and manage it on behalf of Kenyans. And also we take it as part of our community. Yeah, as our land, we protect it for posterity, so that our children, and we can use it also as our resource for it, even for all sorts of protecting and conserving the forest.
I think this,
because Ogiek used to be hunter-gatherers.
Yeah, I think
this used to depend on forest for food, for everything.
Yeah, this also is important for all of us actually to think, because now COVID-19 and the situation is like we have to challenge the developmental model. The developmental model, if we have to really give an alternative to COVID, so we have to go to the indigenous people and say, this is the model. These indigenous people are not uprooting the forest, they are protecting it. It is your development. It is your development which is actually destroying the forest. So I think...
exactly. That is what we have been telling the government. I told them the problem which has happened in the forest has been caused by the government. The forest rangers. Yes. They are the one who has been creating all these problems. They are the one who have been creating this issue of giving licenses for logging farms. Yes. to cut down trees. As we don't have the power source, the big tractors to cut down and carry big logs in the forest. It is all government and giving licenses to companies to destroy the forest. Yeah. So that is one of the reasons why we went to court. Another issue was they wanted to evict us. We say, no, how can you evict us from our ancestral land? Yeah, they say you are there illegally. Yes. But now they are forming task forces to see if they can help us.
So this Ogiek community which you are from, where you're working, can you tell us about a bit, what is this community, what is it different, what is this history, a little bit of history of the Ogiek community?
Ogiek community are basically hunter-gatherers. They have a population now almost, last population census of 2019, we were given a number of about 52,000 people.
52,000, okay.
52,000 people. And they stay in more forest complex, and some of them are staying also in, parts of Mount Elgon. So our work has been basically hunting and gathering, where we used to do a lot of beekeeping. That has been beekeeping, hunting, but now hunting has become a problem. We are no longer hunt because of government regulations. Yeah. But beekeeping is still on. Now we are trying to try agriculture as a way of survival. Yes. So, and being a community, we are small in number. We have never had, last election, we got the first senator being nominated to the Senate.
Good.
in 2017,
Okay, that's
which
good.
has never happened in Kenya. So, and we do not have a lot of people. Our illiteracy level is very high. I can talk of over 98% of our people
Oh,
are
98%.
illiterate.
Oh,
Yeah. It is now we are having fast graduates. I am among the fast graduates
okay.
by luck. And so we are very few in number. In fact, we cannot reach 100 of our graduates so far. And worst is women. Women now amongst Ogiek have a very high level of illiteracy because those of us, when we went to school, some of our sisters were denied to go to school because they said if they get go to education, they'll be married. So what do we benefit? They get married, they leave. You know, unlike India, it is a bit different. As the ladies go and they get married, then you pay dowry.
Yes.
For you get, so it was a benefit to the people.
Yeah.
When the women are given out, you get something. Unlike you people, you pay a lot for. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is as a community, we have a lot of affinity with the forest.
Yes.
Our interest is the forest. We have lived. I was brought up personally in the forest. I didn't undergo any vaccination in my lifetime until I had to get yellow fever vaccination because of traveling.
Yes.
But I didn't undergo the BCGs, the polio. So maybe I am under risk, but thank God I've lived almost half my life, not almost half my life. So I still believe I can still stay longer.
Yes.
So as a community, there's been a lot of, they lack a lot of facilities and all this, yeah.
Okay, so are there any prejudices in Kenyan majority society against the Ogiek people?
Oh yes, there used to be a lot. People used to think we have we have tail.
Okay.
They used to think that because we stay in the forest, we are like monkeys. So
Okay.
they used to have that funny misconception that the Ogiek community have tail. Ogiek community are very short in stature. They are looking ugly. They look like all this. They had to have those misconceptions that we are looking like animals.
Oh.
Secondly, if you look stupid, people say you are looking like Ogiek. You look stupid like Ogiek. So they used to give all the bad things,
Okay.
poverty,
With the contempt
everything,
and all this thing.
all kinds of derogatory. By the way, we used derogative names like Dorobo. They used to call us Dorobo, meaning a poor man without cattle. The Maasai people, who are our neighbors, used to see us like poor people without cattle.
Oh.
So it took time for them to begin to accept that we are not poor in the mind. We might have been poor with resources, but not in the mind. We are not ugly. And we were among the most handsome people and beautiful women amongst Ogiek. So they begin to see, oh, if they see me speak English, they say, are you really an Ogiek?
Oh.
Because they always think an Ogiek cannot speak, he cannot be educated. They say, no, you are just masquerading as an Ogiek and you are not. So this kind of misconception has really taken a lot of our energy and time for recognition purpose. So our greatest challenge has been recognition. Now we have a big challenge of also language, of how to maintain our Ogiek language. Because when people hear you speak Ogiek, they think like, that's not your language. You must have borrowed. So all these have been there. So some prejudice has been there, and even up to now, we still feel sometimes other communities, when they see me sometime, maybe in the TV, speaking or talking or doing some things, they say, that one is not an Ogiek. That is not true. So I keep on saying, do you want me to bring my mother or my late father so that you see my background, or I take you to my village so that you believe what I'm telling you? So this kind of a thing has been a big challenge. Even in my institution here, in my organization, we have been having a big challenge even to tell the world the truth. This is Ogiek-led organization.
Oh,
Sorry.
so this is really a very sad thing, because when it happens, like, when people grow up, people like you, who have achieved things, and then they have to prove that their identity, and this is a very sad part. This is really, because this happens in India when people like when a Dalit student come up and top the examination or speak in a very comfortable English. So many times people feel that, oh, he's not that. And they want to see you in that form only, which they have seen some 30 years back or 50, 40 years back. So that's
Yeah.
very...
Let me tell you, Vidya, the worst part has been, I've been telling people, what should I prove? What can I show to prove I'm an Ogiek?
Yes,
Really? What can I do? Because we have same color, we have same everything. We went to the same schools, and some of us even were privileged to even study outside. I managed to study in both India and Netherlands.
Yes.
So, and all this is maybe for me it's luck anyway. And we never been doing. I used to work sometime in the university. And I managed to be elected severally to lead in cooperatives, land buying company, societies, cooperative movement. And then one time some people say, how can you elect an Ogiek to be our chairman? But some of my leadership, I can be, maybe give my own trumpet, is that I managed to be a chairman for 10 years before I left him to become full-time in my organization. And somebody said, I can't believe this and not yet. How can he be able to be able to do all this? And this kind of is my greatest challenge. How can do you want me to wear the skin which used to be worn by my people those days? Even now we have those skills for cultural values, but I cannot be wearing skin in the city to prove I'm an Ogiek. Really, it is like...
Yeah, that is actually how the prejudices continue to grow, and we never come out of our own shells. I think it is for the other people to think that way, and it's very sad. But more sad because, when we talk about Africa, which has itself been exploited and exploited by the colonial powers, and then other people. And if things happen there among themselves, that is more disturbing.
Sure.
Because we see it like between white and black, between gray people and indigenous people and Indians and non-Africans and all this kind of thing. But then there are layers and layers of discrimination.
A lot of it. And it's not only here. I know I've been in India and I saw some black people, more black than me even.
Yes.
And the Indians themselves, you do discriminate on them, especially in the southern part of India. I saw some people and dark skin, and I could see they are not confident being with the others. And despite even they are very educated, very intelligent than the rest, but because of color, it was a big issue. Anyway,
so you stayed in India. Did you face any kind of discrimination because of your color or identity or national identity?
That one is more or less like saying normal. It is normal to be discriminated as a black person in such countries, sincerely. And you could even know that you are discriminated. But interestingly, the lower caste accepted us more than the upper caste, because maybe they thought we are from the same background or something like that. And you could go to colleges where the poor people are, like you are in a college in It's called former University of Indo, and there were colleges there. And there are some colleges which were Christian college, Islamic college, and all those all university. And you could see that if you do better in some subject, the other Indian students feel like, how can a black fellow beat me in class? How can he get these marks? Or something like that. But somehow we had gotten used to. Some of us who used to go to sometimes church, those who were church fellows, some accepted us by the virtue that we are all Christians or something like that. And but some of them who are Muslim or Hindus, mostly because it's a Hindu country, they used to have that these guys are not Hindus, so you are under. And you are undermining them by talking about Christianity in a Hindu country. And sometimes when you go to some places, they feel like, no, this is not a place for you. Go to some restaurant, they feel like you don't have money to pay.
Yeah, that mindset actually, yes.
Yes. If I sit in a restaurant, which is, I ask for biryani or some nice food, and they feel like, do you know the price? I say, yeah, I'll pay. They say, okay. They will they are not sure. It's like they might even want you to pay in advance before eating to confirm.
This is shameful actually. This is really outrageous. Yeah.
I don't know whether it is still there because I'm talking about 1990s.
No, it happens maybe sometime. I'm not sure because that I can agree that the color prejudices are there in our country and not in my country, but I can say in South Asia everywhere. So that's
yeah. So I think I went back to India again in 2012.
Okay.
But I was in a big conference, so
yeah, no, not every time happens. It is not because now it also happens sometimes when people are not familiar, when there are regular and all these things. So that
yeah, and I'm not saying that, but others had no problem. Others who had gone or well traveled, they accepted us. They gave us homes. We even rented good houses, and they had no problem. But sometimes because of also lack of knowledge of where you come from, I could not blame them. Like children, children will follow me and ask me, want to touch my skin, to feel, and it is normal because just like if you come to my village, they find you like a white person. They will follow you and wanting to touch you and feel. So that one I could not call it racism, really. It is like, this is a person, like when the Chinese came in Kenya, those early days when we were young, we used to think maybe they have eye problem all the time.
Yes.
But it is because we were not exposure. So exposure is another issue. And I always tell people you should separate racial discrimination and issues of exposure. Like if you go to Europe, nobody cares about you because they already know about Africans. So the only thing is that they avoid you, or if you go to a table where they are seated, they move or do something which makes you feel. But they don't care much about you.
Yeah. So Kenya and Africa had a large number of Indian community which has grown up there. Maybe many have become very big. So how is the Indian community in Kenya, which maybe the Kenyan citizen? How are they?
I hope this is among the last question because of time.
Yeah, I'm just want to
because I want to
please.
One of them is that the history of Indian community in Kenya is very long. And it ranges from 18th century to the time of the first railway. So they came, most of them came to build the railway from Mombasa to Kisumu. So some never went back, they stayed behind. They started shops called dukas. So duka, and that's why, so they call them dukawalas. So dukawalas, they are the one who started in Kenya business. So to me, there's a positive reason, or the coming of the Indians in Kenya had a lot of positive change. In Kenya, the first money we used was called rupees. And even up to today, in some communities, they call them rabisiek, means rupees.
Okay.
So we used to, initially, Kenyans were using rupees before the shilling came in. So they started helping Kenya to know how to do business. But as time goes by, some became very rich, extremely rich. And they started there's a big discrimination because of economical power. And they cannot show discrimination because of the numbers. The Black people are many, or the Kenyans are many. But they do a lot of business in Kenya, and they own, even them, they own land. They buy a lot of land and do agriculture, especially the horticultural businesses, flower, pineapple farms, and such like. And they own many industries in Kenya. There are very few, but they are the strongest in the economical power. Though when they see Kenya is becoming weak, most of them go to Canada, they go to Britain, America. They are like moving all the time. Others come, others go, like that. But there's been a bit of the way they employ workers is a big challenge. There's a lot of harassment sometimes, and there have been a lot of cases of harassment by the Indian people. Though it is more or less hidden, but there has been harassment, and they pay also very low wages than many companies. And in Kenya, people feel like if you are lowly paid, they say, oh, you are paid like being employed by an Indian.
Oh.
It is a kind of, but not all of them. The majority are very good people. They do a lot of foundations. Like we have Jandaria Foundation, they help students in universities. They help a lot of work. Others have a lot of, they do a lot of charity work also. Like Lions Club, they are there to help people in treatment and such like. The only unfortunate thing sometimes is they harass the people in the workplaces, and they own a lot of properties, and they have always kind of shortcuts. I don't know how, but because I really cannot say what kind of situation they are. And another interesting issue is that they have never accepted in the marriages.
In the marriages?
Marriages.
They don't do the marriages?
No. There are no Kenyans marrying Indians, or Indians being married by Kenyans. Okay. If you find out of 1 million, maybe 2 or 3, you can't.
So basically, they are culturally not mixed up with the
They have not. They haven't completely.
So how are they
mixed up? In fact, it is easy. Those of us who went to India to study are the one who came with Indian women.
Okay.
But you cannot get a Kenyan marrying an Indian here in Kenya. Okay. If they are there, you can count with my hands here. They are very.
So that means they don't mix up. They want to live in their own isolation, or
yes. In fact, some of them come back to India to look for women to marry in India than marrying any other African lady in Kenya. So that one is real. You can.
Yeah,
that's so a real research.
That was the point that I wanted to actually explore. That do Indians have these tendencies of racism in them? They look down upon African. Do you think that way?
Certainly, yes, they do. And even interestingly, they also look down upon some of their own.
Okay.
They still have also a bit of casteism among themselves. Here in Nakuru, where I am, most of the spare motor vehicle spare parts are being owned by Indians here.
Okay.
But you still find they have brought others from India who are like doing manual work.
Oh, it's a manual work, basically. They brought from India.
Coming to carry
Okay.
some machines from here or trying to fix. And maybe they are engineers from India, but they were brought being told they will get good jobs. When they arrive here, they are made like cheap people. And when I meet some of them, they are my friends. They tell me, you know, when I came here, I'm an engineer, but I was told to work in a shop. I thought I was going to do engineering. Very, very educated people. But the people who are employing them here never did much education. They just went to small, just to know how to write and do what business, that's all. And they bring the experts from India and misuse them.
So they don't want to mix up with African or with Kenyan people, and they're mostly isolated and mostly employ Indians.
Even for them to, if you see them opening their homes for you, it means you are also a rich man somewhere. They cannot open their homes for anybody.
So they won't go out to eat in the restaurant, or mostly
they go to special Indian restaurants.
Okay, not outside that.
In rare cases, they go maybe when they are going to have business deals. That's when you will see them in some, but they cannot go with their families. Whenever you find them with families, they are with specific restaurants only. If it is a hotel, you will realize that hotel is being owned by fellow Indian.
Okay, so that's the sad part, when after so many years, if we can't mix up. And
I can tell you, this is a generation, a big generation of almost over 100 years.
Yes.
And they have not that kind of barrier. It's very hard to break.
So
because you cannot find a young Kenyan man speaking to an Indian girl. You can't. It is like a taboo. You see?
So that's a very, very sad part, because after living 100 years, if people can't mix up, so that means you are only there to earn money and nothing more.
Of course, that's what they want only. Anyway, the word I'm rich and extra rich, and then when you make more money, you go to Canada, you go to Britain, or US, yeah.
So thank you. Yeah, it's great. Before I close up, what strategy would you like for all international organization working and post-COVID? What is the most important thing in terms of for the rural poor, for the indigenous people? What should we do? What should we like? There are people who are saying like, engage with private, engage with this, engage with this. What should we do, and what should be the top priority? Is the land reform issue or land distribution issue relevant or not relevant, and should it come into the focus or not come into the focus?
What if I was told, or if today I was the one to make decisions for land issues in Kenya, I will make land not to be something to make people to think the way they are thinking. I will not make it to be something so that everybody should own land, because it is creating trouble in many countries, including Kenya. And I have been always wondering, why should people own land, even if sometimes they cannot use it?
You have to use it only then.
You see, sometimes you own and then you just make it, and there are people who are very poor, they cannot get a chance to land.
Yes.
So for indigenous people, I think I will still continue supporting communal ownership of land.
Collective ownership.
Collective ownership of land, where people can share the resources in a more distinct and useful manner. Instead of making land an emotive issue, we make it a place where, as a form of production, as also with cultural values. Land for indigenous people is not only for as part of production, but it is also a cultural value. So they should be allowed for cultural values and also for protection as a collective manner for future generations. Because the moment we capitalize land, it is really becoming a problem. We are denying others a chance. It's like we have created a barrier that nobody else can come in. It is only for those special people. So as we end, I will say that I think we should come to where we should accept one another in many ways, whether in black, white, like communities. I think people should, like you, should come and talk to the Indians in Kenya and tell them they should open their doors. Let them work with people.
Yes.
And
without any condition, without any
without
precondition.
conditions. Yeah. Because I always say, I respect you the way you are.
Yes, that's important.
So you should respect me. And when we are together, we can have a cup of tea without feeling that, why am I having a cup of tea with this kind of a person?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Thank you very much, Daniel Kobei, and I hope those who listen to this conversation will have a lot of understanding and about the feeling that you have, and all those friends who will know what land means to you and your community, and you've come out. So my good wishes to you, and hope Kenya recover well from the COVID-19. Thank you very much, and good wishes again.
Thank you, Vidya. God
Thank
bless.
you.
Thank you. Bye.